and YouTube blog covering the German startup scene with news, interviews, and live events.
Welcome to our June 2024 wrap-up with vital news from the startup and tech entrepreneurship scenes in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland in 30 minutes or less. Heavy task today, but our startup news is recorded with me, Chris, in New York City, and Joe joining from Frankfurt. Hello, Joe.
Hey, guys.
Today's news cut-off date is June 25th. As always, all news not included will be happening in our next news wrap-up, and we're going to kick it off with our highlights, and you go ahead.
This month, roundup of the GSA DACH business and tech sectors, we've seen an array of significant movements that are shaping the landscape. Check24 has arguably launched the most ambitious marketing campaign of the year in Germany. Some people even talk about German business history, distributing 5 million free football jerseys from Puma, tapping into the enthusiasm for the Euro Cup and contrasting sharply with Adidas official team gear. This initiative is estimated to have cost around 100 million euro. And has sparked a vibrant online discourse and driven app downloads despite privacy concerns. In aviation, Lilium is seeking 300 million euros in government aid to push forward its Lilium jet. Keep in mind, Lilium is listed on Nasdaq. The Insurtech scene is also buzzing with news of WeFox, where an internal strife could lead to a dramatic revaluation far below its previous 4.5 billion high. Meanwhile, Cognigy is preparing for a significant funding round under new leadership, aiming to expand its reach and profitability. And on a larger scale, Amazon has announced an additional 10 billion, yes, billion investment in Germany, targeting cloud data storage and logistics, emphasizing the growing importance of digital infrastructure in the region. As the region's startup ecosystem continues to evolve rapidly, fueled by substantial investments and strategic shifts. In a significant leap for German tech innovation, DeepL has now clinched the title of Germany's most valuable AI startup with a staggering $2 billion valuation, eclipsing Aleph Alpha following the DeepL robust 300 million investment. Meanwhile, Black Semiconductor is injecting a hefty 254.4 million into Europe's semiconductor industry, with plans to establish a state-of-the-art pilot facility in Aachen by 2026. Not to be outdone, Cognigy, from Düsseldorf has garnered $100 million to enhance AI-driven customer service automation supported by brands such as Lufthansa, Toyota, and Mercedes-Benz. Finally, in the mobility sector, Flix is considering a shift in strategy with a potential private equity investment from EQT that could see a later acquisition of 30%, possibly altering Flix's path to a public offering. Chris, let's talk startups.
Yes. So, I mean, first off, we, for those not watching us, we have to explain we are
Hawaiian shirts. Yeah. And if you're watching this, it's your own fault.
Yeah, honestly. My apologies, but it's a segue into us taking a summer break. We will be back with the summer news wrap up on September 2nd. US Labor Day, also sometimes considered to be the start of election season, even though we said it's Tuesday the 25th right now, and we are looking at the presidential debate in 2 days already. So we will see about this. Nevertheless,
for everybody who speaks German, we may hint that you do have a podcast in German explaining US politics. It's called, of course it's in German, it's called Bei Burger und Bier, which I usually listen to during my afternoon walk. Chris, here you go.
Well done. We're still not sure about the number of publications we will have during the summer, since requests are piling up a bit on our desks. We would assume every other week there might be some new content with the potential to have even weekly publications. So it's promising to be a really hot summer already. And here in New York, we already had our first day with more than 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Also,
Germany is forecasted to have to reach 35 degrees Celsius next week. Chris, how much is this in Fahrenheit? I assume a lot. Somewhere in the 90s?
Yeah. So yes, 35 is like 90s, exactly. But since we are also always service oriented here, I, as a European, always struggled with the stupid conversion from Fahrenheit to Celsius and back, and to have any sense of what any of the Fahrenheit numbers mean. But just recently I read, you just have to think of Fahrenheit as percent. So 80 degrees Fahrenheit, 80% weather. Okay, that sounds good. I can wear short sleeves. 30%, 30 degrees Fahrenheit, which is more or less like 0 Celsius, is like, oh, this is chilly. This sucks. 100 degrees Fahrenheit, it's 100% warm. It's too much. Anything above 100%, way too much, impossible. So this is my new system. And just think of Fahrenheit as percent and you're all good.
Actually, I just Googled it. Of course I did. 35 degrees Celsius or 95 degrees Fahrenheit for everybody who's newly listening to this. Always when Chris does have a siren in the background, he's off the hook. If we don't hear any sirens in the background when he's recording from New York, he owes me a bagel when I'm there next time.
Bagels are piling up. So yeah, our video podcast will go live on June 27th, available 24 hours before for channel members who can't wait to see us in the Hawaiian shirts. Audio podcast goes live on Thursday, June 27th as well. You can always tune into our internet radio station, which more than 100,000 people did all together over all platforms. And we also have many media partners there, including but not limited to Tech EU and Stanford University Radio Show, Laptop Radio. You can find all this at www.startup.radio. You can get your content to your inbox if you subscribe to Substack. And as always, we have all our channels at Linktree, linktree.ee/startupradio, one word. And we also have enablers for this.
This recording is supported by HTIA and the Enterprise Europe Network Hessen. This recording was made possible by HTIA, Hessen Trade and Invest, and the Enterprise Europe Network Hessen. These organizations have made tremendous contributions to helping startup businesses succeed and thrive, providing a range of services from helping to find grants to ongoing partnerships. By taking advantage of these resources, startup companies can network and develop innovative strategies for success on the international stage. The dedicated support of HTAI and the Enterprise Europe Network Hessen, also EEN Hessen, is paramount in providing startup businesses with the tools for lasting success. Look at our dedicated podcast in partnership with them, Tech Startups Germany, or of course, again, as we said, in the link tree. Now dig a little bit into the top news, right, Chris? Everybody's talking about Euro Cup here in Germany right now, especially since Germany has successfully moved out of the group phase as number one in their group. But I do believe it wasn't the most difficult, neither Italy, nor Spain, nor France, nor Portugal. So it was okay. Check24 just accomplished the biggest marketing campaign in Germany this year is a question. Check24 has made waves in its latest marketing campaign, distributing 5 million free jerseys from Puma ahead of the European Championship. This bold move, estimated to have cost around 100 million euros, aims to tap into the football market and attract a younger audience. The jerseys, which have flooded fan zones and social media, contrast sharply with the official DFB, the German Football Association, team's jerseys made by Adidas. Check24 founder Heinrich Blase sees this as a long-term investment in the brand, despite criticism from customer advocates who warn about data privacy. The campaign has not only boosted app downloads, but also sparked discussions and memes online. While some applaud the innovative approach, others question the true cost of the free jerseys. What everybody has to see is also the background story that Puma and Adidas have been founded by competing brothers. So this is just a continuation of this fight. And I do believe a lot of people at Adidas are currently pretty mad at Check24, and of course, Puma. Air taxis, still in the news. Remember that we talked last news about Volocopter and the missing their self-imposed deadline of flying during the Paris Olympics this summer and the failure to secure more than 50 million state guarantees. Lilium is now in the headlines. The Bavarian IFTO developer is seeking 300 million in government aid to bridge financing gaps for its Lilium jet. Meanwhile, competitor Volocopter is also vying for funding. First manned flight expected this year. Details in the link here in the show notes at Handelsblatt. Also, the news of Lilium come after last month we covered the 150 million funding. We've hinted this already in our headlines. WeFox suffers from internal power struggle with a potential $4 billion US dollar valuation drop. There seems to be a power struggle at WeFox, as always the company as a whole is suffering. This is what we know. According to several articles in the newspapers and blogs, Mubadala, an important investor at WeFox, a sovereign wealth fund, pushes for sale of to UK's Ardonga, valuing the Berlin-based Insurtech at only 550 million euros, far below the last valuation reported by TechCrunch to be 4.5 billion in May 2023. Other investors prefer injecting fresh capital. Decision time looms. The blog Finance Forward writes about the power struggle between the founders and the new CEO, Mark Hartigan. They write the founders want to avoid him getting elected for the board of directors. The blog Das Investment, the investment, wraps up neatly. Mubadala investment would profit from a sale. The valuation has dropped considerably. Founders and some investors want a new start because, according to Bloomberg, the founders would end up empty-handed in a sale to Aondag. Mubadala would profit most from a divestiture. The future depends on the election of the next supervisory board. And of course, we keep you updated. In a stark contrast, also in the insurtech space, Clark.de. Christopher Oster, we had him in 2 interviews, and you can look down here in the show notes, the last video interview I had with him in the 100 million round, is peacefully transitioning from his operational role at Clark to join the supervisory board. His leadership has been pivotal, and we're excited to see the impact he'll make in his new role. Congrats, Christopher. There's a link to his personal LinkedIn update, and you can learn more about him along this journey with our 2 interviews with him over time. Plus another article, Insurtech startup Clark is gearing up for a massive 100 million funding round under the new CEO, Benedict Kaltaya, with plans for expansion and increased profits. Clark is set to make waves in the industry. More details, of course, as always in the link. And the last top news, and then I hand it over to Chris. After announcing 7.8 billion euros investment last month, Amazon announced another 10 billion euros additional investment this month. They are focusing on cloud storage in the Rhine-Main area and expanding its logistics network. This brings the total investment in Germany to 70.8 billion euros just announced this year alone. Note, both investments are focusing on building more or less their infrastructure in Germany. And I hand it over to Chris, who has important news about AI.
Yes, and a bit shorter top news here. In the AI world, we see that DeepL is going to become Germany's most valuable AI startup, surpassing Aleph Alpha, because DeepL got a $300 million investment and now hit a $2 billion valuation. They built their reputation with machine translation and actually holding their own against Google Translate and ChatGPT, I'd say. There's more than 250 million euro for Black Semiconductor because they secured 254.4 million euros in a Series A funding to boost Europe's semiconductor industry. With the money, or in terms of business strategy, they are set to open up a cutting-edge pilot facility in Aachen by 2026. And Cognigy from Düsseldorf raises $100 million to supercharge AI customer service automation. Euraseo Growth leads this Series C funding round, which is supposed to fuel research and development and global expansion of the brand. So far, clients include Lufthansa, Toyota, and Mercedes-Benz. We will see who else will join that group. And Flix considers a private equity investment, as you already said. There's big moves in mobility. Investor EQT is in early talks to potentially acquire 30% stake in Flix, powerhouse between Flixbus and Flixtrain, the company here in the US owning what used to be Greyhound. Which also could probably lead, that investment could also probably lead to a delayed IPO. You can learn more in our interview with Jochen Engert, who at that time was CEO at Flix, and there you can get some background about the company. I'm handing it over back to you to brag for a quick second, and then I'm taking over again.
Yeah, there's actually not a lot to brag about. Our new website is online. You can register there on the website to get alerts every time we post new content. Note, not all blog posts are moved there yet. So that means you may get a lot of alerts that we posted something just because we're migrating this. But don't worry, start registering in September. We'll remind you of this again. And you will notice that we've already migrated more than 40 blog posts and are working hard on publishing more. If you're looking to partner with us, look no further. There is a link to our passion fruit storefront. Chris, you always seem to me like an ecosystem guy.
Yeah, big picture guy. So ecosystem news is the part of the show where we talk about everything surrounding the startup scene that is affecting it. At first, we have a look at the worldwide ecosystem, where we see that the metaverse and AR, VR investments are cooling off, even though Apple obviously introduced with huge fanfare the Vision Pro, which also now has a German release date. It seems, though, that VCs are losing interest. 2024 is on track for the lowest funding in years for these technologies. And I mean, even for the Vision Pro, I've already read a couple of swan songs saying, okay, this is going to be, this is going to go down the same way as did Google Glasses. We will see. European ecosystem. There are signs of recovery for the European startup market after a tough 2023. IPOs and late-stage funding are picking up. Early-stage deals are heating up, with major funds like Creandum announcing a new 500 million euro investment. We expect to see more unicorns and startup exits in the near future. All of it can be read in depth at Sifted. And affecting the startup industry in Europe is also the discussion about chat control. And so far, there's no majority about that in the European Union. The member states are unable to agree on a position on chat control today. Council presidency has removed the vote from the agenda because it did not have a sufficient majority. If you want to know more about the chat protocol and the oversight that was planned, you can have a look in the show notes with articles from Netzpolitik and privateinternetaccess.com. And in the German ecosystem, we always take a short look at the IFO Business Climate Index for Germany, in which the poll participants given insight on what they expect how they expect business to develop in the near future. And then we are being communicated a point number, an index number. That index number dropped to 88.6 in June from 89.3 in May, meaning, well, there might be some more pessimism in the market growing. The current situation assessment stayed unchanged, though. And I mean, it's still the same story as has been for a couple of months now, maybe even years. The German economy struggles to overcome stagnation and doesn't show as much of a dynamic growth as other countries do, maybe, for example, the US. The which also leads us to specific numbers in terms of the economy. And we see a slight growth, mostly boosted by construction and exports. German GDP rose 0.2% in the first quarter. Private consumption remains a challenge, though. So the question remains if customer spending can drive a further recovery in the future or not. Moving on from the ecosystem to more specific news from several startup regions in Germany, where, as always, we can tell you, well, there are some hidden gems and cities of general startup interest. We're not looking at everything, but you have a quick sentence about Frankfurt and then moving on to Düsseldorf.
I had thought when you talked about that, when you think about the German economy growing by only 0.2% in a quarter, that is even in a quarter more than a few small GDPs of small nations here in the world. So relatively speaking, we're not growing fast, but I think in absolute terms, it would still be an impressive number. Yeah, Rhein-Main, just keep in mind the news from Clark.de and Düsseldorf. Düsseldorf may not seem like a startup hub, but it has all the right ingredients. Aux Money's CEO highlights the city's tech community, talent access, and quality of living. Read more about them in the tech.eu article. Chris, you want to take over a little bit?
Yeah, looking a bit at the startup hubs that are Austria and Switzerland. In Austria, there was a scoop about the edtech unicorn GoStudent, because it turned out that GoStudent is behind the comparison site Nachhilfe.de, and funneling leads to their own tutoring services at GoStudent. So the site is now being redesigned for better transparency, and we got a full story about that in the show notes. Austria is also set to launch 3 new business angel consortia, boosting early-stage startup investments with 10 million euros from the Startup Invest boosting scaling potentials program. Exciting times ahead for Austrian startups, we think. Looking at Switzerland, FINMA has initiated bankruptcy proceedings against Flowbank SA due to insufficient capital and over-indebtedness. The Swiss bank's license was revoked, and deposits up to 100,000 Swiss francs will be repaid to clients. Moving on to general news, tech news, and the company news section, where we zoom in even more and talk a bit about specific developments in specific companies. First off, though, let's talk a bit about new funds in case of you are looking for money, which only also is a selection. Forbion, which with offices including in Munich, announces the first close of its Bioeconomy Fund 1 at 75 million euros, aiming for 150 million overall. The fund will invest in innovative biotech companies across food, agriculture, materials, and environmental tech. Porsche and CICC launch a venture capital fund to invest in Chinese automotive startups, collaboration that aims to drive innovation and strengthen early-stage investments in China's dynamic market. More about that in the show notes. Green tech news, your realm.
Yeah, we moved this out of the creative destruction. We didn't make it. Waldemar Zeiler announced the temporary end of Zweihorn Energy despite 6-figure crowdfunding. Challenges including legal issues, market complexity, and customer adoption barriers. Basically, he was doing a very annoying all pink trash image everywhere present advertisement for potential solar installations on the balcony that should generate energy, and just didn't work out. Moving on to the fintech news, only 1 in 5 fintech founders would start again in Germany due to excessive bureaucracy and insufficient venture capital. Fintechs wait 2 years for BaFin approval. The coalition's effort receive a grade of simply sufficient, according to the a survey of the German Startup Association. AutoOne's fintech subsidiary called Mobifin has officially failed. A bitter shareholder dispute, sounds familiar, and mismanagement led to its downfall despite initial high hopes. The project has turned into a €1 million loss. 2 news concerning Trade Republic. Number 1. They end their partnership with Solaris Bank in Berlin, opting for established banks like Deutsche, JP Morgan, HSBC, and Citi. The neobroker now entrusts customer funds to these major banks. More links, of course, in the show notes. And Trade Republic experienced problems with paying dividends for shares their customers hold in their portfolio. They answer questions, of course, link in the show notes. And I think by now they might have already fixed that bug. Chris, you want to do some general news?
Sure. And looking at the time, I'm gonna just rattle it off. Northvolt's 2 billion euros deal with BMW has been cancelled due to production delays. It's a Swedish battery manufacturer, which is now also reviewing its planned factory in Borlänge, Sweden. More about that at Zifted. Celonis, Germany's most valuable startup, is reinventing itself, as they say, despite nearly 40% growth. Their IPO is delayed as they revamp technology to harness AI advancements better. They are expected to surpass $1 billion in revenue this year. After the big fireworks of gorillas, which burned fast and bright, not all delivery concepts seem to suffer. So we see that Flush & Post, one of the few survivors of the delivery boom, likely surpassed 500 million euros in revenue in 2023, despite staff reductions. Oetker expects a significant growth in 2024. So maybe Flush Post might also outpace rivals like Picnic and Knusper.
We may add for our audience abroad that Oetker is basically a large conglomerate of food companies started originally by a person with a family name Oetker with ingredients for baking.
Yeah, a bit like, I would say probably like General Mills or something. Yeah, I don't know. They're also into muesli a lot. But not all delivery ideas do well. Berlin's pharmacy delivery service MAID, MAYD, has filed for insolvency. Once operating in 70 cities, they faced financial struggles and competition. The app already experienced outages. The exploration company from Munich receives order from the European Space Agency to build a space capsule in order to deliver freight to the ISS. Peugeot partners with German startup VAY to revolutionize delivery services with teledriving technology, aiming to make autonomous vehicles obsolete. We got big news for Uber. Once a fierce competitor, is now expanding its partnership with German taxi providers. So the Uber app is now available to all taxi operators across Germany. And the German army Bundeswehr is exploring new drone defense solutions, and startup Titan Technologies may have what it needs: a 3D printed AI-equipped kamikaze drone with speeds up to 250 kilometers per hour. It apparently is able to take down larger drones. More about that in Handelsblatt. Let's talk a bit about creative destruction.
Creative destruction, of course, as always, Schumpeter's creative destruction. And I have to tell you, Chris, this is getting shorter and shorter, and the fundraisings are getting longer and longer. I think we turned a corner here. Berlin-based Mersor, known for personalized accessories, declares insolvency. Munich 3D LiDAR tech company Blickfeld is insolvent. Founded in 2017, it raised over 42.5 million euros, but faced financial hurdles. 2022 revenue was 1.9 million with loss of 12.6 million. Whoa, that's staggering. They raised their last funding in 2023. And of course, you can learn more in the show notes. And Austria, Vienna-based startup Spoon, formerly Tolstoy, known for its AI-driven restaurant management software, files for bankruptcy after selling its vegan restaurant division last fall. Chris, you want to end on a high note?
Of course. So we are highlighting a couple of successful fundraising and exits here. Keep in mind, it's a small selection. It's just for us that the news here and the total value show how resilient the startup scene is. We included, as always, only some select fundraisings above 5 million euros or $5 million. This month, there were so many announcements that, as always, nearly. So as you're saying, like mood is picking up, that we could not include all funds raised. So a couple of highlights here. Yes, a lot of money, but since biotech is not our main focus, the news ended up down here. ITM from Garching raised 188 million euros. It's a Munich-based radiopharmaceutical biotech and aims to advance precision therapeutics for hard-to-treat cancer tumors and to expand manufacturing capabilities. ESA Aerospace secures an additional 65 million in funding, raising its Series C to 220 million euro. It's backed by the NATO Innovation Fund and aims to launch its Spectrum rocket this year. Also, ESA Aerospace secures in addition an 18.5 million euro growth loan. Good Lord. They are not like on the green lawn. An 18.5 million euro growth loan to gear up for the rocket production. The investment comes from California's ATEL Ventures, and it will fuel their mission to launch small to medium-sized satellites to enhance connectivity. And then we have a company that for me is probably
Empower Zero.
Empower Zero. Oh. Empower Zero. I was like, accent circonflexe, zero.
M to the power of zero. I think it's yeah.
$35 million in a Series A funding. I guess most of it goes to the person who named the company. The Zug-based decentralized infrastructure layer for crypto dollar issuance plans to expand operations and development. It's led by Bain Capital. Recap raises $14.6 million in a Series A funding led by Entree Capital, financing and data insights platform that will expand operations and business reach in Germany and the Netherlands. Then more AI news. Deep Judge, which is an AI-driven legal search startup, raised $10.7 million in seed funding led by Quatu. Funds will support expansion and team growth to meet customer demands. ARX Robotics secures 9 million euros in funding to revolutionize autonomous ground systems, also backed by the NATO Innovation Fund and other investors. So they want to boost military and civilian applications with scalable but modular robots. Restate raises $7 million in seed funding led by Redpoint Ventures. It's founded by Apache Flink's co-creator and aims at simplifying building distributed applications with an innovative workflows as code system. Atmio, a Hamburg-based startup, raises 5.1 million euros in seed funding in order to combat methane emissions. It's led by Notion Capital, and the round is going to fuel product development and team expansions. Etris, a Munich-based biotech, secured a $5 million funding from the Gates Foundation to advance RNA therapeutics and vaccines. With this boost, they are able to fast-track ETH47, an inhaled mRNA candidate for respiratory diseases. And it's a small investment, but still noteworthy. QuickSave for Compion, it's a Düsseldorf-based B2B financial marketplace, avoided insolvency thanks to a swift investment from two shareholders that injected €1 million. And that came just weeks after the parent company, Doc Financial, went bankrupt. We have some fundraisers from Switzerland. Neural Concept raises $27 million in Series B. It's a Lausanne-based 3D deep learning platform for product engineering and wants to accelerate global growth and meet customer demand in Europe, Asia Pacific, and the US. And Swiss blockchain firm Lücke loses $22 million in a major cyber attack. Despite the breach, the company assures customers that their funds are safe and will be reimbursed. And fundraising from Austria is a blank today. So this is a wrap. We will be back on September 2nd.
And actually, guys, if you want to have more, just let us know. If you want to have less, let us know. But actually, I have to admit, doing more is simple. You just include more content, but actually doing really, more paragraphs, digging a little bit deeper into the news is what we like. That's why the top news are getting a little bit bigger and we go over the rest.
I agree. No news to stay ahead of the curve. In summer, just like stay in the curve. That's our recommendation.
As always, it was a pleasure talking to you, wrapping up the news with you, and we will be back together on September 2nd, Labor Day in the US. Also, my birthday.
Wonderful. Looking forward.
Wonderful. Thank you. Auf Wiedersehen. Au revoir. Bye bye. 再见. Bye bye.
Tschüss.
Tschüss.
That's all, folks. Find more news, streams, events, and interviews at www.startuprad.io. Remember, sharing is caring.